Savannah Spurlock case. And our case takes place in Lexington, Kentucky, where we have a 22-year-old woman named Savannah who goes missing. Savannah was born to Cecil and Ellen Spurlock in 1996. And when she was young, her parents separated and then later divorced. Savannah loved dancing. She was on her school's dance team through junior high and high school. She is described as being very friendly and outgoing. She was just one of those super bubbly girls. She was very happy and just a very kind girl. Savannah's mother remembers summer nights spent outside barbecuing and just hanging out with her daughter. After high school, Savannah attended college at Eastern Kentucky University to study healthcare administration. Savannah had a great start to her college experience. She even won Outstanding First Year Freshman, which was an award they gave out. But during her first year of college, Savannah got pregnant. This really was kind of a surprise. She definitely hadn't planned on having a baby, and she definitely struggled with trying to attend school and be a young mother. And eventually she withdrew from her classes and decided to just take a step back from school, and it would help her be a better mother. Savannah still stayed in close contact with all of her friends, and she loved, being a 22-year-old. She still went out to bars with her friends on the weekends when she could get her mom to watch her son. Now, this was something that Savannah and her father often argued about. By the time Savannah was 22 years old, she had 4 young children, the youngest being a set of twins. Her dad really felt like she needed to stop going out. Those partying days needed to be behind her. And the relationship between Cecil and Savannah became very strained, and they didn't speak much. He felt like she wasn't being responsible, and so he was kind of using a tough love approach. In an interview with the Vanished podcast, he said she was out running around, going to bars and partying, and he felt like she needed to act like an adult. He wanted her to go back to school and begin taking steps to better her life for herself as well as her 4 children. On January 3rd, 2019, Savannah needed a break. She has these newborn twins. I think they were only 5 weeks old. And she's just this 22-year-old young mother of 4 children, and that's a lot for anyone. Savannah's mother, Ellen, said she would babysit the children. So Lexington around 9 p.m. They left Savannah's house and they went to their guy friend's house who lived in this apartment in Lexington, and then he drove them to a bar. I have not been able to find the names of these two friends. She was with a girlfriend and a guy friend, so I'm just kind of referring to them as the girlfriend and the guy friend. So the guy friend drives Savannah and the girlfriend to a bar that's called the Other Bar. And the trio arrived there around 10:30 p.m. They had some drinks, and I guess the guy friend had to wake up really early the next morning, so he leaves the bar. At some point during the night, Savannah and the girlfriend kind of get into a little fight, like a little tiff. And the friend also leaves the bar, leaving Savannah there, but she is not ready to call it a night. She wants to stay. And at this point, we are in the early morning hours of January 4th. The Other Bar closed at 2:30 a.m. and around 3 a.m. Ellen wakes up, and I'm guessing she's waking up to take care of these 5-week-old twins, and she realizes that Savannah isn't home yet. She calls Savannah to kind of see what the plan is, when she'll be home, and Savannah doesn't answer the call. But a few minutes later, Savannah FaceTimes her mom, and Ellen is still awake, so she answers this FaceTime and has a conversation with Savannah. During the call, Savannah was in an SUV. There was one man driving and another man in the back seat. Ellen could tell that her daughter was extremely drunk, but she seemed like she was having fun. She didn't seem worried or like under duress at all. Savannah tells her mom that she'll be home in a few hours. Ellen said that the two men inside the car were being kind of rude toward Ellen. They were like, "Stop worrying, Mom. She's an adult. She's fine." And Savannah is an adult, and she does seem fine, so Ellen stops worrying. Savannah seemed totally fine, and she felt like if her daughter was feeling uncomfortable with these men, she, would have known, or she would have said something. But Savannah said she would be home in a few hours, and so Ellen figures that she will. Shortly after this FaceTime call with her mother, Savannah's phone is turned off. A few hours later, around 8 a.m., Ellen wakes up and she sees that Savannah is still not home, and this is when she becomes concerned. Now, remember, Savannah had left and driven to her friend's apartment, but she had driven there in her mother's car. So Ellen decides to start calling Savannah's friends to try and figure out what is going on. Ellen's first call is to Sabrina, who is Savannah's best friend, and she asks if Savannah is at her house. But Savannah wasn't at Sabrina's house. In fact, she hadn't even seen her the previous night. Sabrina was very worried about her friend, and when she gets off the phone with Ellen, she calls Savannah and continues to call her, just trying to get a hold of her. I think she called her like 15 times within a half-hour window, so she was obviously concerned. When Savannah's friends and family cannot get a hold of her that morning, everyone just knows something is wrong, and her mom calls police and files a missing persons report. Police started looking for Savannah, but they were definitely not the only ones at this point. Her family is also driving around trying to find her, but there's no sign of Savannah. Police were looking into the people who Savannah had been with at the bar the night before. She was with the guy friend and the girlfriend, but police are able to clear both of these friends pretty quickly. They also ruled out the possibility that Savannah had just up and left, like run away from her life. Everyone who knew Savannah said she would have never run away from those babies. Her 4 kids were her world, and she did like to go out a lot with her friends, but Savannah was trying to be the best mother she could. She had recently been working on finding an apartment for them to move into and getting a lot of job and looking into getting another job, so she was making a lot of plans for the future. Police pulled CCTV footage from the other bar, and the footage showed Savannah leaving the bar around 2:30 with 3 other men. She ended up getting into a SUV with 2 of the men, and the third got into his own car, but then followed the first car. Now Savannah is leaving willingly with these men. She doesn't seem anxious or scared. They're not pulling her into the car, she's just leaving with them. Police released this footage and asked for the public's help to ID the men in the footage. They didn't name them as persons of interest, but they just said they needed to talk to them. Savannah's best friend, Sabrina, spoke with police and told them that she had talked with Savannah the night she went missing, before Savannah had gone out. So the 2 friends had talked around 6:30 p.m. and Sabrina basically tells police, look, she did not know those men who she left with. If she knew them before that night, I would know them, or I would have heard of them, or she would have said, yeah, we're gonna meet up with these guys at the bar, but she hadn't said a word about these men. When police asked Sabrina if it seemed out of character for Savannah to leave the bar with these men, Sabrina said she kind of thought probably one of 2 things had happened. Either the men had just offered Savannah a ride home, which she would have taken since she was kind of stranded at the bar, or they offered to go back to their place and continue the party, and Savannah left a party, she probably would have taken them up on their offer. So remember when Ellen had FaceTimed with Savannah, she said she would be home in a few hours, so based off purse in her mother's car, and she didn't have any money. I think she had her ID with her, and she had taken some cash to the bar the night before. Now, police have been pretty tight-lipped about this case. Her friends' names were never released. They also never released the names of two of the men who were seen leaving with Savannah that night. I'm not really sure why they withheld two of their names. However, they did come out and name the third man as a person of interest in Savannah's disappearance. David Sparks, a 23-year-old man, was the main suspect. He rented a home in Garrett County where Savannah had last been seen, so it was his home that she was last seen at. Sparks told police that Savannah and his friends came over after they left the bar. They all wanted to continue the party, but pretty shortly after they had gotten back to his house, the two other unnamed men left, and it was just David and Savannah. He told police that the next morning Savannah woke up and, she woke him up and she asked where they were, and he told her the address, and he was like, "Remember, we're at my house." And then he rolled over and went back to sleep, and when he woke up around noon, Savannah was just gone. This story really did not sit well with Savannah's family. 6 months after Savannah went missing, on July 10th, 2019, police got a call from a man who was reporting a foul smell coming from his property. The man who made this call was the father of David Sparks. So David's parents also lived in Garrett County, but in a different house, on different property. So police arrive at this home and search the property, and the smell leads them right to human remains decomposing on the property. The remains were found under a 19-inch grave and had been wrapped with trash bags. The body was nude and she had kind of been folded in half. Her ankles and wrists were bound together using tape. Her body had been buried with a rug. On July 11th, 2019, the remains were identified as belonging to Savannah Spurlock. Now, the thing that's really weird in this case is that the Sparks family home had been searched by police 5 months earlier when Savannah had gone missing. They had not only searched David Sparks' home, but they knew his family lived nearby and they had a lot of property, so they had searched it all. But nothing had been found during those searches. Police did say that they believed Savannah's remains had been there for quite a while, so it wasn't like they had just been placed on the property. Police were able to confirm that the rug that had been found with Savannah's remains did belong to David Sparks. Police say that the night Savannah disappeared, David texted his sister and asked her where she bought her rug, and then he replaced the rug in his home. So he used the rug to bury Savannah, I believe. He likely rolled her up in it and used it to move her body, so he wasn't just carrying a body. figured out who he was and searched his home, he had replaced that rock. Police also found Savannah's blood on the inside of David's closet. As soon as Savannah's remains were found, David was arrested. But they couldn't arrest him for murder. They didn't have enough proof that he had killed Savannah. So they arrested him for gross abuse of a corpse and tampering with evidence. Now, like I said, police have been very tight-lipped about this case, and there is so much evidence that was never released to the public, such as Savannah's cause of death. But on July 15th, 2019, David appeared in court for a probable cause trial, and the prosecutor said that they believe that Savannah had left the bar with David and his two friends. The two men left David's house, so it was just David and Savannah alone. Now, police had found one of David's neighbors who had a security camera, and it showed like Savannah and David and the two friends going into the house. It showed the two friends leaving that night, but Savannah was never seen leaving the home. Her remains were also found on David's parents' property, and GPS from David's phone showed he had made multiple trips from his house to his parents' property on the night that Savannah went missing. Once police got DNA evidence back, they did charge David with Savannah's murder as well. He was charged with murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. He pled not guilty to all charges, but then he ended up changing his plea to guilty to avoid a life sentence. His trial was set to begin in January of 2020, but because of everything with COVID, it was delayed, and then it was eventually held over Zoom in December of 2020, so like 3-4 months ago. He was sentenced to 50 years for murder, plus another 5 for tampering, and 1 year for gross abuse of a corpse. The charges will run concurrently, and he will be eligible for parole after 20 years, but Savannah's family has said that they will fight to make sure that he doesn't leave prison early. It is still not clear how Savannah died. I don't know if they're just withholding that information or if they were never able to determine it, but I could not find a cause of death for Savannah. On the Remembering Savannah Facebook page, our family wrote, quote, "We are grateful that we do not have to endure the trauma of a trial, and that David Sparks can never get an appeal and go free. The term justice loses its meaning when this tragedy hits your family. No amount of earthly justice was researching, I found a lot of people had a lot of opinions about Savannah, but I remember when I was 22 years old and all the stupid things I did. I think this is a case where it's a little easy to victim blame, and I don't think that's fair. Yes, Savannah was out drinking, and yes, she left the bar with men she didn't know, but that doesn't justify the fact that she was murdered. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I think this case was requested here on Patreon. I'm slowly trying to get through. I have like 2,000 cases that have been requested over the last year, so trying to work my way through those. But thank you guys so much for your support here on Patreon, and I will be back in next week. I have a really big case I'm working on. It might be a two-parter or just like a really, really, really long video. Let me know what you prefer. I feel like I asked that once before and most of you said if it's over an hour to split it, so that it's easier to find your place if you fall asleep. But anyway, let me know. Have a great night. I will be back next Sunday with a big case. Maybe split in two, maybe not, but it's an interesting one. I'll see you guys later.